So the Luxman R-117, this is a very special unit. Some people call it the best receiver ever made in the 1980s, vintage era. So we'll talk about it. But this unit has a very interesting story behind why I got it in. So my friend Darren, who's also a Patreon, was looking for one of these because he had one a while back. But he lost it during transport, during a move or something like that. And so he was looking for one. He found one near me, and then one day he hit me up and he was like, Jay! And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, I found one. And so here it is. So this is his unit that I bought because it was near me, and he will be basically buying off me. And so this unit is very interesting because 1980s was like the vintage era, like the highlight of it. And this was the Luxman R-117. And if you know Luxman is a very famous brand today. And if you see a lot of brands today that are famous, like really high-end, Accuface, Macintosh, Luxman, right? You see these brands, they're famous for a reason. It's because they did something right back in the day, right? They gained their reputation back in the day, right? Pioneers and Sui receivers were very good at the time as well. So a lot of vintage pieces are very good. But let's go over what makes this unit so good. First of all receivers, not all receivers, but most receivers in this era had something called monster receiverness, right? That's what I like to call it. Big, heavy. So if you remember Pioneer and Sansui, they're very, very heavy. And if I remember correctly, they were heavier than this. Maybe I got stronger. This is a little bit lighter in my, perspective compared to the Pioneer and the Sansui. Those are really backbreaking heavy at the time. You see a lot of features that you don't see today, and I don't know why that we don't see it today. We should see it more, because we have like tone control, treble bass tone control, tone defeat button, speaker A and B, right? So you can have multiple speakers or, do biamping if you want. Loudness control, balance left and right. Phono stage, MC and M, both of them. Moving coil, moving magnet. And they have something really cool called CD Direct. So back in the day, they would play CDs, and they knew that if someone's playing CDs, they wanted very purest sound possible. So the CD Direct mode basically bypasses everything in the circuit and goes straight for the most purest sound, which is something that you see a lot on the receivers in this era, and also you see it on some of the Denon units as well today as well. So that's very unique. Another thing that is really cool is that, again, overbuilt at this time. Things were overbuilt. So this unit output 160 watts per channel into 8 ohms, but it was tested at the time, the benchmark there was 250 watts before clipping at 2 ohms. Now, I'm not sure if that is 100% correct, right? This is something I found online, but it kind of, helps me to believe because these things are so overbuilt. You see like big chunks of, filter capacitors in there, big, shielded, triple shielded transformers, incredible craftsmanship at this time. And this was not cheap. This was one of their top of the line flagship receivers at the time, retailing for $1,200 back in the 1980s. This unit itself is 30 years old. This physical unit here, one owner, 30 years old. Guess how much I or Darren paid for these? $550. Now the price fluctuates, but that's around the ballpark of what you would or you should pay for a very nice conditioned unit. So this unit is $550 today, and for what you get with that money is incredible, and that's why I recommend to all newbies or intermediates, even veterans, right? Vintage pieces, because some people I know, all vintage, I used to be like that as well, all vintage pieces, and it just sounds magnificent. Now, you have to like that vintage sound or you won't like vintage units at all. So what does this sound like? Well, first of all, this sounds like vintage. And if someone that knows vintage sound heard that, they would be like, aha, because this is a classical vintage sound. It is mid-centric, meaning that the vocals are beautiful, smooth, warm sounding. So female vocals, male vocals, strings, anything in that mid band, right, sounds incredibly smooth and liquid and warm sounding. But the high frequency is a little bit rolled off, right? So if you don't like bright, it's very, very easy to listen to for long periods of time, right? There's no brightness whatsoever. It is very easygoing. Some people may not like that because it's too dark or veiled sounding, but this is what it does. It has that mid-centric sound with high frequency, slightly rolled off. But good thing is that it does have treble control. So if you want a little bit more sparkle and snap, you can turn that up. Sorry for the language, but you can turn that up. Like quite literally, this you can party all you want, and you can mess around with the tone control to match your taste, your mood. So that's really great. And these tone controls are no joke. I'm not exactly sure exactly what frequency they have this at, right? Each receiver, each unit, even today that has tone control is set to a specific, frequency range. But they did a very good job because when I increase this, I get more of that snappiness and that, fast treble. So now when it comes to the bass, now I quite frankly, this bass control, really good because if you have like a bassy room or if this unit has too much bass, and yeah, this unit, bass. Anyways, if you have too much bass, then you can tone it down. I don't really imagine someone turning it up. Quite frankly, I've never turned it up in my room because this unit has quite a lot of bass, like really good bass extension, really thumpy bass. I wouldn't say it's the fastest bass in the world or the tightest bass, but it's pretty tight for a vintage unit. You see, normally vintage units don't have tight bass, they're a bit loose, they're a bit, smeared, and that's one of the weaknesses of vintage units. But the beauty about this unit here is that it has very thumpy bass and punchy bass for a vintage unit, and very good extension, like I said. So an example track is No Peace, right? Excellent track. Sam Smith. I love his work, and to be honest, people say modern recordings are not that good. Sam Smith, I'm okay with it. But anyways, point aside, No Peace, in the beginning it has very good sub extension, but you don't hear it with speakers that don't have that sub extension or units that can't provide it. So it has that sub extension in the lower octave, but at the same time it has that boom, 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 coming in at the same time. So it's really good for testing the distinctions between the bass notes, but also the extension and the texture and stuff like that as well. And of course, the vocal comes along, and the vocal is just very nicely mastered, in my opinion, for Sam Smith songs. Don't judge me. That's just my opinion, right? I like it. I like what I hear. So, Sam Smith, No Peace, really good track with this unit. Again, the high frequency a little bit rolled off. Now, however, in terms of sound staging and imaging, right? Sound staging, I feel like could do better. Like for a vintage unit, it sounds a little bit too intimate. It doesn't sound as atmospheric and large, right? It sounds more focused. So the imaging is actually pretty darn good on this unit. I was quite surprised. And the speaker that I'm using is something I'm very familiar with by now, the Model 5 speakers. I love this. I've been listening to this speaker. Just great. Love the speaker. Link in the description below for the full review. But that's the speaker I've been using. And if you know the Model 5, it's like a hybrid between a vintage and a modern sound, I like to call it. So very good match with the receiver here. And this really takes the Model 5 to a little bit more of that vintage side, right? Gives a little bit more of that color side to the Model 5, which I quite liked. It's not something that I would play every day, but it was a good, like a, one of those days, those cheat days, you do leg day, yeah, and eat some McDonald's. Yeah, that's like every day, but, and because it has that, mid-centric sound and that luscious, smooth, warm sound, it's very good with poor recordings. So if you have poor recordings, then by all means, right? And I tested the phono stage. It has both MC and MM, and like I said, it's very good with poor recordings. You guys remember this? If you've been watching for a while, you'll understand. Dream On, first song. Dream on, dream on. Terrible recording. Terribly recorded. It sounds terrible with modern gear. But with this unit, sounded pretty darn good, right? Again, it was very exceptional experience, right? And that's what I get for vintage. Now the reason one of the reasons I think that this gives that backstory, right? So one of the reasons I like this album and why I like the first track Dream On, even though it sounds terrible on modern gear, is because I started off with vintage gear, and so my music taste, stuff like that came from kind of that vintage sound, right? What sounded good with vintage. So a lot of Pro recordings sound still good with vintage, including this, Dream On, absolutely love it. Now another vintage song that I really enjoy when I used to have my JBLs and stuff like that was this song right here. And I really had to play this song because in the beginning of the track, it has this deep voice coming in, and it has to be the season 4 version. Make sure you play the right one. If it's not playing that deep voice in the beginning, then it's not the right one. Try it. It shows really how deep the voice can go in your system, and how holographic and realistic. It's just so freaky and amazing. Here is the ghost coat charming down. Call the rising sun. My voice don't go down that deep, man. But I don't know how he did that. I almost threw up there, like. Whew. But I feel like this song is very good for vintage units because it really gives you that deep and dynamic sound. Because as you go throughout the song, it starts to go, high pitch, rock and roll style, and then it goes, mild again, and it's a really nice track. It has that kind of like country vibe to it, but it's not really country, so I like it. Anyways, it's a track that I play a lot with vintage speakers back in the time, but with this unit, I really enjoyed it. No brightness whatsoever. One of the things with this track is that with the S's and T's sound a little bit sharp in terms of the recording itself. But this unit, I heard nothing like that with it. No brightness whatsoever, no vocal sibilance. So, really enjoyed it. Now, another thing that I really played was, a lot of you guys actually reach out to me and ask me, what's your favorite Korean music, right? And you guys think you're slick. You guys are like, so Jay, so what K-pop you like? What do you mean, man? Like, I don't play I don't listen to K-pop. Okay, I listen to good ballad. Ballad. So one of the things I really like, and also I like rock and roll, Korean rock and roll. One of the things I really like is MC The Max, right? And I played it here, and it sounds incredible. By the way, if you listen to Korean music and you have no idea what they're saying, they're usually singing about breaking up, or already broken up, or their sorrow with love. Everything is about love. I don't think there's a single Korean song that I hear. I think like 99% of Korean music is about love and breakup and heartbreak. Try Korean songs. Excellent vocals and reproduction. There's a lot of screaming, right? Not really screaming, but like long notes of vocal, like I just tried, attempted. Not a typical Korean. I can't really sing compared to Koreans out there. They're getting really crazy, like really crazy good singers out there, including my friends. But anyways, that's it from me. I think this unit is definitely deserved for $550. Basically a steal. Yes, it's old, so you have to be careful to make sure that you check, and if anything is wrong or too old, you need to refurbish it, recap it, all that headache that comes with vintage. But I definitely think it is a bargain if you can get one in very good condition or already conditioned. So anyways, I'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe and click that bell notification and the like button so you don't miss the next one. Peace. Oh, I think I lost my voice. Oh shit.